When I met Chelsea, she had nothing, no job, and no family. Her family weren't on speaking terms with her. She was broken, mentally and physically, as lifeless as a human can be. She was suffering from depression. Justin, her boyfriend of 7 years, had ended their relationship. He promised the world to her, promised to marry her, and they would build a future together. She dropped out of school to move with him to his new job, much to the chagrin of her family. Throughout their relationship, he was very abusive, and at the end, broke her heart by getting married to his boss' daughter. Chelsea had their future laid out. They would get married, have kids, and live happily ever after. Now he was gone, leaving her with tears and shattered dreams. That didn't stop her from loving him. Through the heartbreak, she was still hoping that one day, Justin would do the right thing by returning back to her. While she waited for the return of Justin, I pursued her up and down, trying to win her over. She was a beautiful girl. How broken she was about the breakup spoke to how genuinely she loved, and I wanted that kind of love myself. I knew I could make her forget him. I knew if I tried harder, her mind would change and say yes to me. It wasn't easy to get her to see things my way. She never called me until I called her. It took me a year to get a call from her, but when she did, it was worth the wait. I remember how happy I was when I saw her call on my phone. She had never called me, so why is she calling me now? When I picked up, she said, "I called you to check up on you." For her to call and check up on me gave me hope that finally I was making inroads on her heart. Finally, reality had dawned on her that Justin wasn't coming back. She called because she had decided to pick up the pieces and move on with them. I was glad she thought of me when she thought of moving on. I asked Chelsea for a date on her birthday. After a little hesitation, she agreed. When I saw her that night, I could swear she was the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. I proposed to her knowing this would be the first of many until she agreed. To my optimal surprise, she said yes. No second guessing. No give me time to think about it. Just yes. Our relationship had been pure bliss, and the 3 years we have been together had been my happiest. The plan was to get married to her this October. We were set to make a lifelong commitment to each other, and that made me very proud. Looking at where it all started, I made sure not to spare a dime, just to ensure that we had the most memorable wedding. Few months ago, I noticed Chelsea was getting distant. I thought it was a phase that would end in no time, but it kept getting worse. She kept distancing herself from me and everything that was going on between us. I asked her, "Is anything the matter?" She said, "Everything is fine. I'm only anxious about the marriage. That's all." When a woman doesn't need to say she's fine, being fine is not a word. It's something that ought to show in your attitude. She said she was fine, but I wasn't going to take it just like that. So I started to dig around. Her best friend was the only person I could fall on to get information from. After pestering her for a while, she told me what the issue was about. She said, "Justin is back in the picture. They have been sneaking around for some time now." My heart skipped several beats. I didn't sleep on what her friend told me. I wanted to get the truth from her own mouth, so I asked her, "Chelsea, I learned you're still seeing Justin. Is that the case?" "I'm not seeing him," she said. "I went to talk to him because I needed closure on everything. Our meeting was only about that and nothing more." "Nothing more?" "No, there could be something more." So I decided to look for the missing links to the whole story. I sneaked through her phone one night and found a text between her and Justin. On one of the chats, they were talking about what to do with the pregnancy. There's a pregnancy involved? The discussion were sketchy. I didn't understand everything, so I went back to her best friend again. I knew I could get the information from her because that girl had expressed some sort of soft spots towards me. She confirmed Chelsea was a month pregnant for Justin. No words can express the shock I went through when I heard that. After all these years, how could she do this to me? I am hurt, angry, and disheartened. I am experiencing pain at places I didn't know exist. I haven't told her anything, neither have I asked any questions. I saved all the information I collected from her text message. She thinks I do not know about the pregnancy. She thinks me a fool, but even a fool has his day. I was planning on calling off the wedding at the very last hour. In one of the text messages, she expressed the reason for getting married to me was to impress her family because they saw her as a disappointment. I felt like I was the sacrificial lamb. Something has to give, and I'm not going to play softball. My best friend suggested that I date her best friend to get back at her, but that would pale in comparison to what she had done to me. The crime does not fit the punishment. I wanted to hurt her in ways she couldn't easily recover from. The wedding was a few months away, so I decided that I would make a scene. I made sure to not invite anybody from my side of the family, just a few friends, while I made sure she invited all her family members and friends. The wedding was just 3 weeks away, and we wanted to have it as soon as possible. And we wanted to make it as soon as possible before her pregnancy started to be visible. Weeks before the wedding, I asked my fiancé whether she invited Justin. She said no, and was curious why I would ask her that question. I told her I wanted him to see her get married for my peace of mind, because I wanted to show him that she's mine now. She was reluctant at first, but later accepted. I guess she was thinking that maybe she could get him jealous. I knew the reason she was going along with the marriage was because she wants someone to be the father of her unborn child. She wanted me to be there to hold her hands when she gave birth to another man's baby. She wanted to deceive me. On the day of the wedding, I was at the altar, watching as her father walked her in. She was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Looking at her father's face, I could see how proud he was. All her family and friends were there. Some of my friends were there, but none of my family members were told about the wedding. I have managed to hide my wedding plans from them. It was difficult, but I had to do it because I didn't want them to witness what I was about to do. I made sure to look through the crowd to see who was there. It was perfect. Justin was there with his now wife, whom she left my fiancé for. It was hard for me not to keep staring at his direction. He was chatting with his wife, as if he had done nothing wrong. He had impregnated the woman I love. I can't imagine how he could be so comfortable to allow another man to raise his own kid. The thought of that aggravated me the most. As my soon-to-be wife approached the altar with her father by her side, her pregnancy can be seen, slightly visible through her wedding dress. She had tried to force it in, but it was obvious that she was pregnant. Weeks before, she broke the news to me that she was pregnant, and I pretended to be happy because she claimed it was mine. When I saw her walking towards the altar, I couldn't help but shed tears of pain at the sight of her pregnancy. It was as if I was seeing it for the first time. The emotions that I've held for so long came out with vengeance. I was inconsolable. My heart broke for what I was about to do. People might see it as cruel. It will be all over the gossip column on the newspaper in town. But a man can only take so much. She owes me a debt, and it has to be paid accordingly. She approached me in the altar and wiped the tears off my eyes. The crowd was at awe, observing our chemistry, not knowing what was about to go down. My friend, whom was my best man at the wedding, helped me to set up an overhead projector in such a way that all the guests would see the projector screen. We set it up 2 nights before the wedding. What I was about to do was planned months ago when I opted to perform the ceremony on a party hall instead of a church. My soon-to-be wife fought me about it, but gave up when I insisted. I want to be able to be in control of the environment. When it came time to exchange vows, it's tradition for the man to go first. When the priest asked, "Do you take this woman to be your wife, to live together in holy matrimony, to love her, to honor her, to comfort her, and to keep her in sickness and in health, forsaking all others, for as long as you both shall live. I loudly said, I don't. I could hear the gasp in the crowd. The priest wanted me to repeat what I just said, like he didn't hear me the first time. My soon-to-be wife eyes were wide open, staring at me, like her eyes were about to fall out of the socket. I could hear a pin drop in between gasps. The silence was broken by the sound of the overhead projector screen being rolled down by my best friend, my best man. He was about to give everyone a presentation of her text conversation with her ex-boyfriend, Justin, the real father of her baby. As my best friend described my wayward wife infidelity, she looked confused. I was so ashamed to look in her eyes. I was so embarrassed. I couldn't have pulled this off without my best friend. I think he enjoyed exposing her. I didn't wait till the end of the presentation. I couldn't bear it any longer. I walked down the altar and out of the hall. As everyone watched me, I could see everyone's jaw literally on the floor. My wayward fiancé was on her knees, crying when I left the hall. On her knees, where she belongs. She's a failure and a disappointment, and that is where she belongs. I am glad to announce that while I was outside the hall, Justin's wife came storming outside, heading to their car, while he chases behind her, begging her to stop. I have destroyed the relationship between Chelsea and her family, and Justin with his wife. I believe they deserve it, but deep inside, I don't feel any better. I feel hurt. I'm not getting any younger. I wish she had just cooperated and be faithful to me, because despite all that, I still love her. This is a prime example of what it looks like when a beta male gets entangled with an alpha widow. An alpha widow is a term used to describe a woman who holds attachment and still fixated on the man who had the most significant impact in her life. In this case, her ex-boyfriend of 7 years, who broke up with her and left her for a higher value woman. She couldn't get over Justin, whom she sees as a higher sexual value than the original poster. The original poster is her plan B and second option. She is willing to have him raise the alpha seed. It is obvious in this story who is the cheater and who is the simp. Although he came on top at the end, he still lost his time and money because he wasn't able to identify the red flags. There were many red flags that he should have recognized to know that she wasn't in love with him and didn't have genuine desire for him. In the story, the original poster mentioned that she had never called me, so why was she calling me now? When I picked up, she said, I called to check up on you. The real translation to this is that women always have their option open. There was a study done in 2019 that suggested that almost half of all women have a backup plan in place in the event of separation from their current partner. This is not to say that women are bad or women are evil. In fact, contrary to the case, it is important for her survival. More on that in later videos. The reason why she called him is to keep her backup plan in line. She have noticed that the original poster was about to lose interest in her and wasn't simping as before. So she called him to reignite his desire. Nowadays, so many beautiful women have male orbiters around them. They call them from time to time to give them compliments, attention, and money. Those are her plan B, C, and D options. After pursuing her for years, he finally asked her out on her birthday and she agreed. This is also a prime example of what they call one-nightists, which is an attraction towards a single potential partner to the exclusion of other partners. If he has been dating other women, he may have found someone that has genuine attraction for him. Instead, he waited in the wing as an orbiter, a beta male, and a plan B. In our current society, we have been indoctrinated in a social construct that men or women have only one soulmate, facilitated by popular Disney and Hollywood movies. The idea that we only have one person for us is fake news. In reality, if you can get along with him or her, and you have genuine desire for that person, he or she could possibly be your soulmate. Our original poster wanted to spend the rest of his life with her, and he doesn't even know her that well. She has spent the better part of the years rejecting him. If you have been rejected by a woman for that long, even if she later accepts you, she would most likely be wearing the pants in the relationship. There is a fine line between being persistent and being a simp, and the original poster is knee-deep in the simp category. The only reason she accepted to be with the original poster in the first place was because the alpha male was unavailable. So she settled with the original poster. Now that the shepherd is home, the lost dog has now run back to the owner. Do not be the second option. Only go with a woman with genuine desire for you. She was doing what she needed to do for her survival, but ultimately it backfired on her and ended her cheating career. Goes without saying that the biggest loser in this story is ultimately the unborn child that will end up being raised in a single parent's home.